Yo! Hello viewers, it's Peter Elgar from Brentwood, Essex, England with another one of my treasures that I've been donated. And look at this set. Wonderful gear. And looking after it, I've done some repairs on it and I'm going to show you some results, some actual snaps, and we'll go through it all. It's the Nikon FM. Now it was part of a series, FE, FE2, FM, FM2, FA, that sort of series. And this is the black paint version, but it came with this super duper micro Nikon macro lens and a Series E 28 wide angle. And then the guy phoned me up, he said, I found another old standard lens, and it was this one, the Nikon H 50mm f2. It's fractionally wobbly, very well worn. I've tried to clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol, and there was a little bit of fungus. Most of these lenses had little fungus flecks, but luckily I've been able to clean them off. So we'll look at the camera body first, then we'll show you some snaps. This is fully manual exposure. That's why it's called an FM. I think M stands for manual, and FE means, I think, the electronic shutter version with automatic exposure. The Nikon bayonet mount with the mirror, and the foam is very good inside here, but when I opened it up all the foam had gone rotten. This is the lens changing press. We put the lens on and off, you press that. This is a standard flash socket for putting studio flashes, or I can use my mecha bits on it. This is the press that, and the little lever works here and stops down your lens to a taken aperture. So it's a depth of field preview. This is the delayed action, and that all works. And the battery it takes it's got a 3-volt one in, or it will take two 1.5-volt button cells. These are the contacts for a winder, and I fitted a winder to it and it all works. And this is the rewind button where you press that in when you want to rewind the film, and then the tripod hole, so I've greased that slightly. Now the black paint was all brassy. It was worn on the corners. There's a little bit there I've missed. But I've done some work using this modelling paint, satin number 85, I think it's called Humbrol enamel paint from Hobbycrafts in Romford, Essex. And with a minute little brush, dip that in. It's a satin one, not the matte black. I've got the matte black as well, doing chip lens hoods. And I went round and done all the brassy bits. Now to open the Nikon, you can't just pull it up here. You have to release a little catch at the same time as you pull it up. So I've managed to fathom out these Nikons. You push that little catch, then pull, and if you're lucky, the back comes open. And then I've renewed the light seals there, and there's a nice new bit of foam there, all been renewed. It's got a removable back like that. I've taken the back off, cleaned all that nicely. So whenever I get given anything, I always look after it, because you'll never get gear like this again. Years ago I couldn't afford wonderful stuff. It's got a vertically running metal shutter, so don't go poking that. Wind it on, fire it, 1,000th of a second, and it goes down to 1 second, like that. Lovely sound and brief time, which as long as you keep your finger open, the shutter's open. And then the flash synchronization is on the red. Maximum speed you can use here is 125th of a second. Now this red dot is a warning for the fact that you've got to leave that winder out. Otherwise it shuts off the exposure metering. And if you push it, if you wind it on and then push that in, it locks. It locks and also turns off the metering. So to take a picture, you've got to leave that out. And sometimes you'll find that in your eye. This is a double exposure lever here, a little button, or whatever you like to call it. You take one snap, and then you press this and move that along. I think you hold it, that's right, you press it down, then you wind it on, and the film doesn't advance, and you can take two snaps on top of one another. Now in the viewfinder, you've got some red LEDs on the right hand side, light emitting diodes. And then you choose a shutter speed you want, so say 250. And then you switch it on, and then you twist your lens aperture until you see just one LED come up. So the famous Nikon fitting, these prongs are for the older style bodies. I think you had to set it to 5.6 or something and wiggle it around, but that one is not used. This is automatic indexing. So you put it in with this over here. There's no little red dot as there should be. Then you turn it the Nikon way, which is opposite to everybody else. Then it goes on. And focus in here. Then you've got a depth. Then you've got your aperture scale here. Move that. Move it on the black ring. Get the black dot. You've got a depth of field indicator line here if you want to work out how much sharpness you're getting front to back of your picture. And then it all works, but there is a fraction amount of play, but the lens gave very sharp results. 52mm for screw-in lens hoods and filters, 52mm. So what about the other lenses? Press that. Turn it the Nikon way, that's right. The Micro Nikkor is one of the most famous lenses going, because it racks right out massively and you can get the same size pictures. Yes. Now what about the exposure problems when you rack a lens out? Well, because it's got through the lens metering, the camera will indicate the correct exposure for you, and you don't have to do the calculations, because when it's 1:1, you have to give it 4 times normal exposure. But because you got through the lens metering on your subject here, it will automatically give you an aperture or settings to compensate for how much you racked it out. So here's how far it goes, to 0.25 of a metre, and the reproduction scale is 1:1. That's 9.86 inches. That's 1:1 there, reproduction scale. And I've used that. Show you some snaps of it. There's maximum aperture 2.8, 55mm, 2.8, not 50. And then we also had the Series E, which some people said was a bit cheaper, but that's a good lens. I've never had a Series E. It's a 28mm 2.8, and it's usable at full aperture. Very sharp indeed. Now, what other things can I tell you about the Nikon here? Loading the film, I suppose you want to know. Open the back again. There we are. Here we are. I've got a dummy film. Put your film in the cassette here. Pull it up. Make certain it's seated correctly. You pull out a little bit, not too much. And you've got to fit it into a little slot here. And there's a little peg into which you should try to get that little peg into a sprocket hole. Press with your thumb there to tighten it. Wind. Make certain you've got 2 holes on the sprockets here. Yes, nice and tight. Yes. flick across, turn this backwards on itself to tighten the film, complete the wind, and this should move. Yes, take one snap and then you're ready to take. Although it's not on actually number 1 here, you will get extra frames like that. So, we'll show you the delayed action, I suppose. That's about nice and quiet. Yes, very, very quiet. It's not like the Russian ones. You can hardly hear it. Here it goes. Isn't it exciting, isn't it? Well, we'll show you some results now, I suppose. Here we go. I took some at full aperture. Let's move them out of the way. It's no use having the lens if you don't use it at full aperture. This is one of my test subjects now. The old Lodge, dated 1906. But it's got some wonderful brickwork and contrast. So I stand slightly to the side. This is f2. And the brickwork here is all sharp. And it fractionally goes off due to the lack of depth of field at f2 on that side. It's not a fault of the lens, it's the depth of field. Slightly soft because it's slanting away. But that's f2. Full aperture. Here's my famous shot I take in the churchyard of some statues. That's at f2 as well. Then the 28mm lens. I managed to catch a horse and cart driving up one of our roads. That was taken about f4. I just luckily had that lens on and I had it set to f4 for overcast light, and it came out smashing. It's really sharp. And then I took Wilson's corner. The aperture is full aperture 2.8, and I'm going to show you there is some detail. You can see the slates in the brickwork here. It's not easy showing you in a small print, but when it's enlarged up and under a 6x magnifier, it's fully usable at 2.8. So what about the micro Nikon? These are some colour shots on some out-of-date colour film I processed. A little close-up of a little thing in my wife's garden there. And a rose. That's the sort of thing you use a macro lens for. That's not 1:1, it's less than that, but it's very sharp because that is at 2.8, full aperture. I didn't want great depth of field. I just wanted to see what it was like with the texture. It's rendered all the texture in the petals very nicely. Super deluxe, super duper. So I'm very pleased with the old Nikon FM. Very grateful for the camera club member who gave it to me. So I'll see if I can find some more treasures later on to show you. And thanks for watching my channel. And if you want to contribute to my channel expenses, I'll give you the link below where it says buy me a coffee. But you don't have to buy me a coffee. You can buy me a film or some batteries. Thanks for watching. See you next time.